Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to ask one important question, and that is, what is next for the Democratic Alliance? And the reason that I'm asking that question is because John Steenhuisen has come out publicly and stated that he will not be seeking re-election as the leader of the Democratic Alliance, which means that this paves the way for a new leader to take over and move the party in the same direction or a different direction. I also have to say that who the next leader of the DA is going to be is arguably one of the worst kept secrets in South Africa. It's going to be Geordin-Hill Lewis if he says yes. Now the condition of course is that he remains the mayor of Cape Town, and I believe that the party will say yes to that because that actually keeps a distance between the leader of the party and the GNU government. Because we've seen that the GNU government hasn't really turned out the way that the DA has wanted to turn out, because the improvement in the ministries can't really be seen. And ultimately, this is seen as a failure by the public, and therefore the leader is seen as a failure. And that is also why John Steenhuisen has gone through the things that he's gone through. Trust me though, most of what John Steenhuisen has experienced was self-inflicted. The fact that he went to the White House and couldn't speak up for South Africa, what he did with the company credit card, what he did with his own debt that he owed, removing Ramon Cabernac, moving Andrew Whitfield, Emma Powell, and also me, if you want to include that there. But his downfall was of his own doing. But a big part of that also has to do with the fact that he is the Minister of Agriculture, and we are facing the worst livestock disaster in South Africa's history. And that is happening under his watch. It might not have started when John Steenhuisen took over the reins of the ministry. However, his lack of dealing with it is what has also made a lot of people upset, angry, and has caused him to be very unpopular. Not just within the DA, but also with the broader South Africa. Now, ultimately, John Steenhuisen did try his best to save the DA, and I would argue that, considering where the DA was with Mmusi Maimane at the end of his term when he decided to resign from the party, I have to give a little bit of credit to John Steenhuisen and say that he managed to stop the bleeding, and he managed to, just ensure that the party, at least for the next election, didn't lose more support. Technically they did, because they got less votes, but the percentage increased. So, you can say what you want about John. I think though that after the election, the 2024 election, that's when everything got derailed, where the DA started going down this weird path of woke leftist ideology, and also just the way that they didn't resonate with the people that voted for them. I think that is fundamentally what caused this disconnect, not only between John Steenhuisen and the DA supporters, but just the DA as themselves and their supporters and the voters out there. Now, what's going to happen in April, the DA is going to go to a federal congress. And this is where they're going to elect a new leader, a new deputy leader, a new chairperson. This is where all of the leadership structures are elected. And it's also importantly where the federal executive is going to be elected. Now, the federal executive is, the best way to explain it is, Helen Zille is currently the chairperson of the federal executive. Then it includes all the provincial leaders. It includes all the chairpersons, and it also includes all the deputy chairpersons of the ancillary bodies. In essence, it's about 20 to 25 people. And these individuals is pretty much the dagbestuur. They're the day-to-day management of the DA. So if a news report comes out about something to do with the DA or with one of their councillors, members of parliament, members of provincial legislature, then they deal with it and they issue out a statement. Now, it's very clear to see that the federal executive from 2023 until 2026 has failed the Democratic Alliance miserably, because they've taken the DA down this path where the GNU has got a minister whose party condemns expropriation without compensation, but the minister has to implement the Expropriation Act. And you've got a minister of basic education whose party is fundamentally against the Bella Act, but she has to implement it. So you see the dilemma here. So this federal executive from 2023 up until 2026, I would even argue, is more to blame for where the DA finds themselves in right now than just John Steenhuisen. Because even though John Steenhuisen forms part of the federal executive, when you are in that grouping of people and everybody there is telling you what you want to do is wrong and you need to do something else, then you are more than likely going to follow them. And if you look at the federal executive in the DA right now, so before they are going to federal Congress in April 2026, they have failed the DA voter. They have failed the members of the DA, the MPs, the MPLs, the councillors, because they have accepted not only the GNU, but they've accepted the positions because they are the ones that negotiated it. They are the ones that chose which ministries the DA is going to take charge of. And ultimately, they are the ones that approved the fact that even though they campaigned against Bella, the Expropriation Act, and also against NHI, that they then allowed all of those to pass under the GNU. Now, they can argue that, well, the president signed that into law December 2023, I believe, or December 2024. Irrespective, the fact remains that they could have condemned it and said we're not going to support that, but yet they've just accepted it, and now they have ministers that have to implement it. The point that I'm making is that if you want to blame John Steenhuisen, you're well within your rights based on his actions, but you also have to blame the people behind the scenes, the provincial leaders, the chairpersons of the ancillary bodies, like the DA Youth League, the DA Women's Network, etc., etc., all the ancillary bodies of the DA. And then also, just the people that are in the high-ranking positions like Helen Zille, Andrew Whitfield. Who else is there? There's a couple of people that's in the high-ranking positions in the DA, and they all know who they are. And I could sense this with my situation that took place because there was a grouping of people within the federal executive that tried to steer the DA down this woke rabbit hole. And that is where we are right now, where these individuals have pretty much captured the federal executive and they are in control of it, meaning the majority of the federal executive has decided to adopt these policies or to implement that or to go down that path. And it hasn't worked out. And I feel bad for John because John is just one of the many people that made these decisions. And the people in the federal executive will sit comfortably knowing that the public won't really know that they are the ones that's behind this decline in support for the DA, and also for the DA falling out of favor with a lot of South Africans. But yet they will be secure in their positions. And you'll also usually find that these are people that never ever want to stand for leadership positions, meaning the leader of the party, but they will happily exploit the leader of the party by giving them these bad ideas that they have to implement. And one of those people is Dean McPherson, as one example. Dean McPherson is the wokest of the woke. The irony, of course, is that John Steenhuisen is the one that's taking all the knocks, but Dean McPherson is sitting there along with everybody else. I'm just pointing out that Dean McPherson is one of them, and nobody is talking about how Dean McPherson ruined the DA. But everybody's looking at John and going, you are the one that ruined the DA. And I also think it's important for people that just vote because they want service delivery to understand that getting rid of John Steenhuisen doesn't now mean that magically the DA is fixed. You need to go and look at the DA policies. What does the DA say on economic justice? What does the DA say on immigrants in this country or people that are here illegally? Those are policies that people blame John Steenhuisen for, but in actual fact, it's part of the core of who the DA is in 2026. For an example of this is if you look at the economic justice policy of the Democratic Alliance, in it they talk about the UN Sustainable Goals and they talk about the World Economic Forum. Now, just one example of the UN Sustainable Goals. They want green energy. Now, green energy means that if you are going to use non-green energy, then you're going to get taxed. The country is going to tax you. Other nations are going to tax the country. And ultimately, it waters down and it affects people like farmers, who hasn't switched their farms over into solar energy. And ultimately now they are going to have to bear the brunt of the DA deciding that we are going to accept green energy. So things like that, and like a digital ID where the government knows where you are, knows how much money you have in your bank account, and they can freeze your salary being paid into your account, as was the case in Canada when the truck drivers decided to go on strike. Then all the government did was just refuse those people to be paid because they had access to their digital IDs. Now, I know that it might sound a lot like a conspiracy theory, but it's because we, in a third world nation, still developing to that point where we are going to see these technological advances, right? So as it stands right now, we don't really know how terrible this globalist idea is, because the UN Sustainable Goals, in essence, wants to globalize the world and take what makes countries unique away from it, and especially with South Africa being such a diverse nation, rich with so many different cultures, you would think that we do not want globalists to touch what we have in this country because it is so unique, because we've got 12 official languages. But yet the DA is going down this path because the DA believes in social democracy. The DA espouses liberal values. And if you look at liberal values, you can look to the United States, and you can look what happened under Joe Biden. And you can look at how many immigrants were allowed to go into the United States and how many immigrants managed to get citizenship and are now leeching off of the government. Now, we know in South Africa, we've got a very, very big problem with social welfare. Illegal immigrants in this country that are using up resources that are actually meant for South Africans, making the queues longer and causing people to die because they can't get the help that they need because the illegal immigrants are being assisted. Now listen, I don't have a problem with immigration as long as you follow the law. If you come into this country legally, welcome. Welcome to one of the most beautiful nations on earth. However, if you come into this country illegally, you don't pay taxes, you don't contribute to the fiscus, but you benefit from what other taxpayers pay, that's a massive problem. And just go and read the DA policy. I'm not going to shit talk the DA here. You can go and read the DA policy for yourself so that you can see that I'm not the one that's lying here. But ultimately, what the DA wants to implement is a globalist agenda for South Africa, that we adhere with other nations and abide by their rules, when in actual fact, South Africa should just be South Africa. We are unique, and we need to embrace that. And for the longest time, that was our strong point. That is what we told the world. We are this unique nation that's got so many different cultures. We haven't had a civil war. We don't want to fight each other. We just want to live together in perfect harmony, but celebrate our cultures. And it's communism and socialism through the ANC, EFF, and MK that wants to destroy that. But you also have that through the DA and their liberal policies. Like I said, look to the United States. Look at what the Democrats wanted to implement there. Because ultimately, the Democrats of the United States believe in the same globalist ideas that the Democratic Alliance believes in South Africa. So what's next for the DA? Well, that depends on what the federal executive and the new leader of the DA decides. Do they reevaluate whether or not they've gained support, whether they've lost support? If you listen to John's press conference, he's saying that the DA is polling at the highest level it's ever polled. So I highly doubt that the DA is going to go and say, hey, let's try something different. I believe the new leader that's going to come in, Geordin-Hill, is just going to double down on these same policies that has made the DA so unpopular. You can just go and research Geordin-Hill and the policies that he's implemented in Cape Town. If you are a Cape Townian and you pay rates and taxes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've seen those rainbow zebra crossings in Cape Town, then you know what I'm talking about. Ultimately, it's just furthering this globalist agenda that I don't really think is in the best interest of South Africa. Now, I'm not here to promote another political party. You can go and evaluate that on your own. I just want you to understand that What's next for the DA depends now on what happens at the Federal Congress in April. We know that Geordin-Hill, if he says yes, will be the leader of the party. We know that his track record speaks to the UN Sustainable Goals and the World Economic Forum and these globalist policies that has been tried many times by the Democrats in the United States, and every single time it's failed, and it's caused the United States to be in a worse condition than it was before. We also know that the federal executive has been captured by these woke leftists, and we understand that they want to double down on these policies because those policies are the policies of the Democratic Alliance. So if you think that getting rid of John Steenhuisen is magically going to change the DA into something completely different, it's not going to happen. And time will tell. You will see what I'm talking about. You don't have to believe me now. You can see what happens leading up to the 2026 municipal elections. So ultimately, it is sad to see somebody that I once respected in John Steenhuisen going from being such a brilliant chief whip in Parliament. Remember the Steen slaps that he used to give Cyril Ramaphosa and Julius Malema and even Jacob Zuma. Remember, we all shared those videos where he had a witty comeback and where he just spoke the language of the people that voted for him. And unfortunately, because of the way the DA's policies have gone, we left with this individual that more than likely don't actually believe in the policies that he wants to implement, but was forced to do so by the federal executive. So to conclude this video, I think it's important that you just take note that the leader is the face of the party, but the people that are actually controlling the machinery is the federal executive. And I think it's important that you guys and girls find out who these individuals are right now that has caused the DA to be in the position that it's in now, but also who's going to be in the federal executive after the federal Congress in April 2026, and hold those people accountable if the party goes backwards even further, which is what I suspect, because they're not changing anything. The only thing they're really changing is the leader, which is like changing the tires on a car whose engine is completely blown. It doesn't really help, and it doesn't really change anything. But that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that like button, share this video far and wide, consider subscribing. Remember, it's absolutely free, it won't cost you anything. However, if you would like to contribute financially to this channel, then you can become a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below, and it'll cost you R39.99 a month. And that's pretty much all I got to say, everybody. Till later, cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.